Good morning, everybody. My name is Nikki Antonovich. I am your CERA treasurer, and I've just got a few housekeeping items to cover before I hand you over to your CERA president. First, we are in a Zoom meeting, not a Zoom webinar. That means you have the ability to come off of mute, and we do this so that our Q&A session at the end can be engaging. However, this only works if we can all monitor our mute buttons. We have a couple of CERA board members standing by to mute people who accidentally come off mute, but to the best of our abilities, please keep yourself on mute so that this format continues to work for us. Speaking of the Q&A, the chat is open, but we ask that you hold your questions for the dedicated Q&A session at the end. At that time, we will ask people to raise their hands and come off mute and ask their questions to engage with our presenter. We are also recording this webinar. We will be posting it to the CERA YouTube channel. That's right, we have a YouTube channel, and we'll let you know once it has been posted. And the very last thing I want to say is that you might recognize some familiar CERS training faces, mine, Joe's, but we do want to state very clearly that this is very separate from the CDE-sponsored Introduction to CERS training. That training is August 20th and amazing, and you will see Joe and I on that one as well. But this is a CERA webinar, not CDE-sponsored, all around optimizing group management in CERS. And with that, I pass you over to Erin Roberts, your CERA president.
Thank you, Nikki. Thanks for the great introduction this morning for things. We are so excited to have you here with us. And one of our commitments with CERA is to kind of continue the learning outside of our conference. And a huge kudos to both Joe and Nikki for continuing learning and being able to think about what our members' best interests are to be able to further their learning, their knowledge, and how we support our students across California. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the amazing Joe Valero.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Good morning, everybody. Joe Valero. Glad to see everybody here on what is it? It's a Friday morning. We made it, right? We made it to Friday this week. So welcome everyone to Optimizing Group Management and Access in CERS. Today, yes, we just put the link to the presentation in here. It's about this much presentation, a lot of dialogue back and forth. It's a lot of collaboration, a lot of just hearing what our colleagues are doing. We'll also do some live demos. But if you have a question at any time throughout this morning, please add it to the chat, raise your hand, whatever melts your butter, and then we'll go over. If we don't know the answer, I'm looking at some of the people already in the room that are here. There is so much experience. We'll be able to go over and find an answer. And if not, we know who we can also turn it to. As what Nikki was talking through earlier, yes, some of us are probably familiar faces. You see us with some of the trainings that we do with our colleagues at the California Department of Education. Once again, we're taking this one to the side. This one's completely different from what we do. But once again, you're going to see a plug here in a few slides for the one that is coming up with the California Department of Education. So welcome everyone. Glad to see everybody here. All right, once again, I am Joe Valero. I'm from the Office of the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, focused primarily on assessment and data. That's what we've been doing here for the last, I want to say, my gosh, 6 years. And even before that, another 5-6 years in a district working with assessments, once again, assessments and data. So it's been a little over a decade in this world. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? What are we going through? So we're going to have an overview about accessing CERS through TOMS. What does that look like? And I know for some of us, if we were in the AAIM meeting yesterday, the Assessment and Accountability Information Meeting, you see that? That's a Friday morning, and I got that right. The AAIM meetings yesterday. We saw a few updates coming through. Those are always, really exciting. We're always going over there waiting with our popcorn to go over and see what's coming out new. There was a CERS area yesterday in there, and that conversation did come out and the question did come up about TOMS and CERS, that connection. And so I just thought that was beautiful. We'll be able to go a little deeper into it today. So we'll have a conversation about that. We're also going to be doing a just full-on live demo. How might we access the CERS upload templates, downloading them, getting the information in there, and then uploading it. So we're just going to do a full-on recording of that. That way, As you go back, if it's your first time going over and doing that, you'll have a video that you'd be able to reference. We're also going to talk about some TOMS data resources. So what do we mean by that? TOMS has a lot of resources within the files that live within it already that can help us with our CERS uploads. So we're going to be going over that. And then this is, once again, the power of the room, the creative ways that we can connect users. When we're talking about connecting users into CERS, a lot of the times we think, you know what? I'm going to have my teachers and I'm going to connect their students. Boom, done. Well, that's one way to do it, and that's a great way to do it, but we also have other ways we might be able to consider. So we'll be talking through that as well. All right, so this is my favorite part, in all honesty, is who's with us today. So in the chat, and once again, chat's wide open today. If you could just share your name, organization, and as funny as it sounds, what's your favorite sandwich? I'm a sandwich guy. I'm a big bologna sandwich guy. I know. Bologna, maybe if I were a lot younger, I'd probably put some Doritos in that bad boy, right? Get some, Doritos, bologna, white bread. Oh, now I'm more of a turkey sandwich guy in my old age. Oh, it's a BLT. I love that. Yes. Reuben, such diversity. Look at that. Italian subs. Oh yeah, nothing beats a good Italian sub. Good morning, good morning. Oh, I'm seeing some sprouts. Yeah, getting sophisticated there. Love it.
Chicken pesto.
Oh, chicken pesto,
With
warmer.
you on the chicken pesto, Lindsay.
Oh yeah. You know what should have been the question is, what area of the state are you from? And then your favorite sandwich shop, right? That way we know where we can go afterwards. I love it. Yeah, cold cut combo. Oh, French dips. Yes. Good morning. And it's funny, you can all see the different areas. Oh yeah, capriottis. Yes, that turkey and cheese. All right. So yeah, okay, here's my second favorite right there. So capriottis, they have a great, it's like a Thanksgiving in a sandwich. They'll give you turkey, stuffing, dressing. Oh yeah. And if you ask them to warm that bad boy up, oh yeah, turkey avocado. Oh, good morning, Melodia. Yes. Kelly, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. So looks like we have different areas of the state represented. I'm seeing a lot of Southern California, seeing Northern California, a lot of Central California. Oh, Muffaletta, that's my love language, Eric. Yes. Sounds like Capriotti's might be my new fave. Yeah, right? Ooh, love it. So much diversity coming. Diversity. Isn't it funny? I'm talking about diversity. It's about sandwiches. So love it. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. Once again, for those of you that just came in a few minutes ago, this is going to be we're going to try to keep it as interactive as possible. We'll be leaning on really the experience of the room to go over and share out just the experiences and the different ways we're all using CERS, and we'll all be able to steal those ideas. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for going over, sharing who you are and where you're from. Before we get into the actual CERS training today, we wanted to go over and plug one more time. Remember, this right here, this is not a CDE training. Yes, some of us are part of that team. This is part of CERA, but we highly recommend, even if we've been to these trainings in the past, there's always something new we can go over and gain from it. And so you're actually going to see the upcoming CERS trainings. We have one coming up here in a few weeks. And if you click on the actual image, it's going to take you to the registration for it. So once again, highly recommend. You can choose whichever dates you'd like to attend, but there's an introduction to CERS training for test coordinators and administrators. This is just one little piece of CERS. The training through the California Department of Education, it's broader. It's broader. Um, there's more that's talked about through there. And thank you, Nikki, for going over and adding it to the chat as well. So we're going to give everybody a few seconds here. If you haven't had a chance to register yet, go ahead and click on that right now. Click on that registration. And once again, highly recommend attending that training. There's always something new we can go over and learn about CERS. And there's also an interactive part as well where, we're also hearing from our colleagues across the field. Nikki, please.
I was just gonna say, you get to spend a couple of hours with me and Joe talking about CERS in addition to today talking about CERS. Oh, and Aaron Gordon, also part of the CERS training team.
Right, we see Aaron here. All right. We're giving everybody those few seconds to go over and get registered. All right. Let's talk about accessing CERS through TOMS. And so what do we mean by that? Well, we're talking about user roles because CERS and CERS access really comes from TOMS, whatever role we are assigned in TOMS. And so what we've just simply visualized on this slide here is what lives in the link. This is from the CERS user guide, and I'll get into this here in a few seconds. But we took it and we just wanted to show which role provides what access into CERS. And so if we start off, and I've stripped a lot of the language away, so whether it's LEA coordinators or site coordinators or LPAC, CAS, whatever, if you have anything that says coordinator in it, then you're going to have access to all results in CERS. For if you're an LEA coordinator, it'll be for the whole district. If you're a site coordinator, you'll have access to all your data for your school site and your grade levels. But in a nutshell, if you are a coordinator, you have that access to essentially see everything, either at your site, once again, if you're a site coordinator, or LEA coordinator, if you are an LEA. Along with that, LEA coordinators can also create and edit assigned student groups. You can go over, create those groups, connect them to teachers. Teachers have access. You can do that. You can also create, edit, delete your own custom groups from the assigned groups if you have groups assigned to you. And then the other additional pieces, you have access to those really cool custom aggregate reports, that initial landing page when we get into CERS. So coordinators have a lot of, for lack of a better term right now, you have a lot of power within the system, and it's instantly there. You don't have to assign groups to be able to see student information inside of CERS. It's just automatically there for LEA coordinators. Now, here's something super interesting. If you look over and you see the educator role, whether it's educator district or educator site, it's the same exact thing. You have automatic access to all of the results in CERS. If you are a district educator, you have automatic access to all the results for the district, all the schools, all the grade levels. You can do the same exact things that LEA coordinators or site coordinators can do. You can do the same thing. The one difference is the educator role. It's really about that access inside of CERS. Here's the caution. The coordinator role. Now I'm going to get into the TOM side of things. The coordinator roles, whether it's LEA coordinator or site coordinator, either of those two roles, that role, when you're in TOMS, you can do additional things. You can go over, you can you can assign test assignments, whether it's the California alternate assessments, assign designated supports, accommodations, different things that educator doesn't allow you to do, that one particular role. So with that being said, they look like they are exactly the same. They are when we're looking at it in terms of CERS. When we think about it in terms of what we can do in TOMS on the actual testing side of the house, that's where the big difference is. LEA coordinators or site coordinators can add users in. You can do so much. So much so to where if you have a lot of people in your system that have coordinator access, sometimes it's one of those, do we want so many people in the system that can go over and make changes like that? So then once again, we're going to go back now to educator, that educator role. And the question really is, are there people at our sites that might need educator role where they're going to need access to that data inside of CERS? They're going to need access to maybe create, connecting rosters, managing student groups. for teachers. Is there somebody in our system that maybe they need educator access and they don't necessarily need a coordinator access, like site coordinator or LEA coordinator? So just keeping that in mind as we're thinking about roles in TOMS. So those are the two roles, big roles we have right now: coordinators and then educator. This very third column here, these are your test administrators, test examiners, interim assessments only. So those we primarily assign to teachers. We primarily assign those to teachers. Now, here's the interesting thing about those roles. They cannot view all the results and CERS for the district school grade levels, just like LEA coordinators, site educator, district educator. They have access to what is inside of their classrooms. Who has been rostered to them, who has been assigned to them. That's all they have access to. And we have a little asterisk on the bottom. When they're viewing the data, that's assuming that either the LEA coordinators or site educators or district educators have gone over and actually created the groups and connected them to the test administrators, test examiners, or IA only roles. So it's assuming that those groups have been connected. And if you want more information on that, there's a link up here that will take you immediately to the different roles and what each role is able to go over and do and see. So once again, you can see it was a little long in the user guide, and I appreciate it because it's very detailed. I love it. I just wanted a more simplified view for myself right here.
Joe, it looks like we have a question in the chat. Just to clarify, test administrators, test examiners, IA only can see their individual student scores if those students are connected to them in CERS. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, that's a great question. So test administrators, test examiners, interim assessment only, they will only have access to the scores that are connected to them through the rostering process. Yeah, great question. All right, so with that being said, that was a lot of information we already went over and shared out. How might we use different roles in TOMS for CERS access? Thinking about considerations, thinking about we have the coordinator role. Once again, we have site coordinator, we have LEA coordinator, and the power that those roles have and what they're able to do, both in TOMS and in CERS. And then you have educator, whether it's site, whether it's district, and what they're able to do inside of CERS. Or test administrator, test examiner, IA only. How might we use the different roles in TOMS for CERS access? Thinking about your system, is there somebody in your system where, you know what? Maybe there's one of these roles we might be able to use for them. Or maybe you're already doing it. Maybe there's a new innovative way that you're using some of these roles in your system, and the rest of us can go over and borrow and steal from you. So in the chat, how might we use the different roles in TOMS for CERS access? Or how are you using it? Leave it wide open. I love it. Whoops. Sorry. It became a waterfall chat right there on me. Let me make my chat bigger. I was reading one, and you know when it goes away? Oh, yeah. Use the site district educator roles for TOSAs, right? And some districts will have district TOSAs, some will have site TOSAs. So it all depends.
I also see using those educator roles for like department chairs or EL coordinators.
Can I use interim assessment for non-testing teachers if I want them to access CASP scores and CERS for assigned groups and access teacher tools? Yeah, like tools for teachers and the secure.
You could also use the educator roster role for that too.
Educator roster will give you access in CERS, as long as they're roster to you. And then the really cool thing about that role is educator roster cannot manage student groups, which is kind of cool because, sometimes, you don't want a mistake being made. That's a great one to use as well.
I'm seeing a lot of use of the educator role. This is so cool.
I know I was always under the assumption, and never good to make assumptions, right? That we don't use the educator role as much. I love it. Yeah, assign educator role to middle school admins to access scores for incoming students. Oh, I love that, right?
I'm seeing educator roles to the site admin that are not the site coordinators. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because sometimes it's in the past, sometimes you would have to assign site coordinator role for somebody who wasn't necessarily um, coordinating assessments, and it's more people in there. Things can break. Instructional coaches to have IA only to support teachers and students. We do that here too with instruction. Excuse me, um, interim assessment only. We use that over here with our coaches as well, where they need the access to secure materials. Tools for teachers, some of the robust resources inside of Tom. So we use that IA only role. Mm-hmm. Educator role for administration, sites, and district levels, right? It's a great one to use, especially sometimes with district acts, high level district administration, where they're not going to coordinate sometimes inside of Tom's. Thinking back to my old organization, some of our really high assistant soups, they were not going to coordinate much, but they needed access to data. And so that one particular role right there is perfect. You don't have to mess with trying to go over and trying to keep all the data up in CERS and all the rosters because it's syncing as kids are moving through, with CalPads and enrollments. Oh, good one, Katie, too. I love it. Yeah, grade level PLCs, right? PLC leads, TOSA's coaches, yeah, who aren't assigned students within our SIS. Yeah, because it's hard. It's hard to try to go over and keep everybody up. Yeah, that's a great one. Thank you. So many great ideas. I am so sorry, Eric. When I read yours right now, I thought you wrote El Grupo. It's an early Friday morning for me. I'm a big Three Amigos fan. Yeah, provide access to EL groups. Yes, for our EL teachers. And that's a big one, right? Going over, and a lot of the times when we think about a lot of the pre-canned student connections that we have with a lot of our student information systems, it's connecting just primary rosters. Sometimes we deploy in schools, sometimes teachers are sharing kids, and it's having to go beyond what that is. So I love it. Yeah, going over and thinking above, right? Access to EL groups, and that's something big that I want to talk through here in a few minutes. Love it. Yeah, so many different ideas. And this is the whole idea of sharing is caring, everybody, being able to go in and being able to just see what others are doing, stealing those ideas. But that educator role is a really powerful role. Not able to access data for incoming students. A lot of that is dependent on when we're looking at data inside of CERS, it's also, and I'll be 100% transparent over here, not all of our enrollments are in yet in CalPads over here. So if they're not in CalPads yet, then a lot of that information doesn't carry over into CERS and TOMS. And so for me over here, we're not able to see all of our incoming kids yet inside of CERS, not until we push all of ours over. Oh, so many great ideas, so much great information you guys are sharing.
Looks like we have a question too about that. I think the educator roster role. So that educator roster role still requires that same managed student groups that the test administrator, test examiner does. It's just a way to get them access to the groups of students you roster to them in CERS without the ability to administer assessments or access secure materials.
Mhm. All right. So another great question came up. TOSA, what is it? We live in education, right? And sometimes we'll speak in just these acronyms. So depends on the different sites. So some people might call them teacher on special assignment. Um, Sometimes they're instructional coaches. Sometimes they are, oh my gosh, what was the term we used to have in our district too? Instructional coaches, academic coaches. It all just depends. So that's what you'll hear when you're hearing CIS. All right, thank you everybody for going over and sharing all your great ideas. Let's get into an actual live demo now. What does this look like? Accessing the template and then uploading it into the system. And so with that, we're actually going to leave this presentation. Don't worry about it if you're, trying to take notes and going over and write down the steps. On the very next slide, we have the steps laid out for you. You're going to go to CASP, LPAC. So everything that we're going to go through, they'll live right here in these steps. So how do we access a CERS upload template? Well, let me first bring in my information from this screen on my left side. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to imagine that we need to upload a template. We want to go over and access the template. So we, as either an LEA or a site coordinator or educator site or district, we're going to go in, we're going to connect those rosters. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to go to the casp-lpac.org website. You're going to see CERS on the right side of the screen. So we're going to click on CERS. And just a plug for this screen right here, any information you need about CERS, all of the really cool resources, if you scroll down, you're going to get the CERS user guide, the interpretive guide, videos that are really helpful, quick reference guides, so on and so forth. So I wanted to plug that because sometimes if you're like me, what is it? You don't scroll down sometimes. And there's a lot of really great resources. So once again, I clicked into CERS and I'm going to click into CERS one more time. And when we get into the system, this is what it's going to look like for coordinator roles and for educator roles. This is what it's going to look like. It will look different for test administrator, test examiner, interim assessment only. They won't see this particular group of options up on top. So I need the template to download. Well, we're talking about student groups. So if I click on student groups, and on the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see another blue button that says Upload Groups. Going to click on Upload Groups. And then it's going to ask me, oh, okay, here, or not to ask me, but there's going to be a button, CSV file format. If I click on it, it's going to give me how we write it out, what we put in there, and you're going to see the actual template on the bottom left corner. So if I click on the template, it's going to open up for me after I download it. There we go. And so it's going to give me all of my columns that I'm going to need to fill in to upload. Group name, school natural ID, school year, subject code, student SSID, and then group user login. And we're going to get into these here and what they mean in a few minutes. The main thing we want to just share right now is do not change anything in the headers. Do not change them. I tried to get sophisticated a few years ago, and it was, you know what? I'm going to create this in a separate system, and I am so smart. I'm going to copy the actual headers. I'm going to put them in there. That way, when it downloads, it's going to, download the headers already ready for me to go, and I'm just going to paste it into the template and then upload it, and boom, it just gave me back like 300 errors. So don't change anything. Just a recommendation, get your data somewhere else and then paste it in. Paste it in right below. And once again, we're going to get in a few minutes. So let's assume that we've gone over, we had all of our information, we pasted it into all of these areas. What does it look like to actually upload it? So once again, I'm going to go back. Let's say that I've downloaded the template. I put all the information in there. When you're in student groups, uploading groups, you can browse for files. And I have one that I've downloaded already. It was one that I was using. And once you click, you've chosen it, it will specifically tell you, and this is one of my schools, whether the upload status was accepted or whether it wasn't accepted. It'll show up as red. Now, the beautiful thing about CERS though is that just because it didn't get accepted, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. If you go over, you open it up, it will specifically tell you which row didn't work, which row was some sort of error, something that wasn't formatted right. Maybe I didn't have things sorted the right way. It will specifically tell you what you need to do to go in and fix it. So then you just simply go back to your spreadsheet, or excuse me, to your template, fix it, save it again, and then re-upload. And usually the second time it'll work. Every once in a while, you'll upload, you'll get the error, and it'll say you need to fix this, and then you fix it, and then there was something else that'll pop up, and then some, you fix it, and then you re-upload it, and then you'll get that green. You'll celebrate, go over, buy yourself a cake, and you'll celebrate. So, but that's uploading in a nutshell. Once again, you download the template, add in your information, and then you upload it, and it will give you that status. Sometimes this is just what we've observed here. Sometimes it'll take sometimes 20-30 minutes for the information to actually push over, and then when the teachers are logging into CERS, they'll be able to actually see the student groups. So sometimes it's not just an absolutely immediate thing. I've been in trainings before where I uploaded and it was one of those, okay, everybody, you're gonna have access to it, and then it becomes the, oh my gosh, you don't have it yet. But never fear, in a few minutes, you'll see it carry over. So just give it a little bit of time to go over. Now, just so I'm not a lying liar, I said we were going to go a little deeper into what do some of these columns mean. And so this is the template. We just took it out. These are the different columns that are necessary for uploading student groups. When you read some of the headers, sometimes it just doesn't seem like they make sense. So this is if you're a Kung Fu Panda fan, I'm a big Kung Fu Panda fan, can you give me a level 0? This is a level 0 explanation of the way, Joe, the way I go over and see what the information is. So what do we mean by group name? Well, it's just a locally determined name of a group. That's just simply all it is. So you can name it whatever you would like. If you want to name it vanilla ice cream, which I wouldn't do, but you can name it whatever you want. That's the main point here. This is just a recommendation. It's just simply a way to do it. It's not the way to do it. But with some of the cool updates and features that we've seen in CERS, it's starting to become really beneficial to add the school year before whatever you're naming your group. And we're going to get into this here in a few minutes because there's a really cool feature where we can go over and actually download these reports and then re-upload them later on if we wanted to. So group name, you can name it whatever you want. Biggest thing is just make sure you don't exceed 200. You cannot have over 200 students within that one particular group name. Here's an interesting one, school natural ID. It's just simply the County District School Code, or CDS code. And it took me years to figure out what CDS meant. Well, here's one in a nutshell. This is actually my CDS code. So 10 is the county. So that's the first number. And then you're going to see the district code, excuse me. So county, district, and then the school code. Those are the three sets of just different numbers that need to come together to make a school natural ID or a school county district code. If you don't know what your CDS code is, never fear. I'm going to show you in a few minutes how to get that information super easy. But you'll need your CDS code. You're going to need the school year. The way for me to honestly remember this is just, if I'm talking about the 25-26 school year, it's spring. It's the springtime. So it's 2026. If I was talking about last school year, then it would be 2025 because it was a 2024-25 school year. Subject code. This was something that was a little bit of an issue here working with some of the districts that I was supporting. And so you can either use all in all capital letters, ALL. And what does that mean? Well, if I'm connecting, whichever teacher it is to, the SSID of this student, they're going to have access to all of the assessments. They'll have access to LPAC, Smarter Balanced English Language Arts, Math, CAA, whatever assessments the student took. You can also go over and silo it and assign only math or only ELA or only LPAC. Now, here's something that we ran into last year, though. Last year, we were supporting a site, and the question came up, hey, Joe, we've uploaded student groups. This teacher can see all of the interim assessments that they administered for English language arts, for math, so on and so forth. But we've been using interim assessments for LPAC, and we cannot see, any of the scores. And, it was one of those, oh my gosh, well, everything looks good. The teacher can go over it. They can see everything. But did they administer the LPAC? Were there any hand scoring out? I mean, it was going down the whole rabbit hole. And finally, it was, hey, can you pull up your rosters, your student group, the managing student group rosters? Let's just see what it looks like. We open it up, and it was specific in here. The subject code was specific to one particular assessment, or maybe it was two assessments. And so then it became, okay, I see, because this is an LPAC assessment. So the teacher, even though everything was uploaded, everything looked great, this subject code was very narrow. And so this is just a way to do it. This is the way that we've been doing it. We use all. We use all only because if you're an ELA teacher, and this is just me coming from the classroom too. When I was in the classroom, I needed to see my whole picture of my students. If we have some struggling happening in English language arts, is that also happening in math? Or if I have some sort of struggle in English language development, is that just an ELD thing? Or is it also happening ELA and math? So I'm telling you that really long story just to go over. And if you know that people are going to need multiple assessments, just use all. Just use all with it. SSID is super easy. It's straightforward. It's what the state student ID is. It'll be, one per student. Notice we're not putting multiple SSIDs in one row. You're not putting multiple ones in each cell. You're putting one per row, excuse me. And then you have group user login. Easiest way for me to explain that to myself is that's the email address we used when we added the users or the teachers into TOMS. So that email address needs to match the email address that is inside of TOMS that they use for their TOMS access, whether they're a test administrator or test examiner. Why am I harping on that? Well, true stories from the trenches, right? So I had a coordinator reach out once, and it was, hey, Joe, we know that we've uploaded our groups. We know that the teachers are connected. The teacher was able to administer an assessment, but they can't see anything inside of CERS. So me being very confident and cocky, I was already, it's probably the subject code. No, the subject code was good. Everything was good. What happened was it came down to, hey, has that teacher, did they get married recently? Did they change their last name? Somewhere midway through the year. And it was actually one of those, she started off the school year with her maiden name, and that's what was added to Tom's. But when we were uploading the rosters into CERS, it was using her married name from the student information system that had been recently updated. So there was a disconnect. It couldn't go over and match this teacher's new email address to the email address that was in Tom's. So always very important to go over and just make sure that there is that one-to-one match. The other thing we just wanted to point out here is you can add multiple users and connect them to a group. What do we mean by that? Well, you can connect a teacher to the group. You can also connect, let's say, a principal, and then maybe a learning director, maybe you want whoever you want. You can connect them through this process to those groups. Now, there was a real recent update that happened where maybe we don't even need to do this anymore. We're going to get into that here in a few minutes. But point here, you can add as many people as you'd like to go over and connect them to the groups.
Can I also add, we
Please.
get a very common question about what user types you can add to a group, and it can be any user type. So beyond just the test administrator, test examiner, educator roster roles, if you have someone who is set up as a site coordinator or an educator site role, you can still connect them to groups if they're working with teachers and need to see teacher groups and things like that. LEA coordinators can be assigned groups. Don't know why you would, but you can. So like any type of role can be assigned to a group.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And in a few seconds, we're going to get into maybe you don't want to do that, through this managing groups process. Maybe you want to do I'm gonna go send you a Starbucks, Nikki. All right. So, question for the group. What does that uploading process look like in your organization? Who are you connecting to groups? And once again, there's no right way to do this, no wrong way to do this. It's if it works for you, that's the right way. But our purpose here is to go over and steal ideas from each other, hear, borrow, and just go over and once again learn from each other. So once again, what does that upload process look like in your organization? Hey, maybe it's this is very wide open. Maybe you're using an API. I don't know. So feel free, add it to the chat, please. Once again, this is the whole sharing is caring. This is, being able to see what others are doing. Good question. So multiple users is not going to be in the same cell. It would be in a new row below. Yeah, great question. So what does the upload process look like in your organization? Jennifer's using the Aries CERS group download to start. Ooh, then I add extra users to groups who need access. Love it. Oh, Julie, yeah, uploaded groups from both last year's, so they could see how they did last year, and then for their new kids, and then how they're doing this year. Katie, the power user, sorry, I saw Power School, sorry. Power School. I am so guilty of going over and mixing words a lot. Yeah, you guys have Power School, you have those building SIRS roster groups in there. Yeah, it does make it a lot easier. I agree.
I
I'm
see.
seeing.
So Karen created a template that assists with the roster files, but then hands that over to her site coordinators for them to import into CERS. So like bringing it down to that local level. I like that.
Yeah, building capacity too along the lines. It's a great idea. I see another incoming versus outgoing. Yeah, multiple layers to it. I love it. Sys team I can't speak. The sys team uploads rosters to SIRS. Yeah, and the really cool thing is, depending on sys team and how much access they need into these different systems, they don't necessarily have to be either an LEA coordinator or a site coordinator. If you want them just to have district educator or site educator role, they can do that and never have to really be inside of Tom's. Academic coaches, yeah, you would add them to the next line if you're adding any academic coaches. And so I feel like a lot of this is actually going into what we want to talk about next. I create user groups, Aries, RSP, speech, TOSA, love it. Yeah, intervention teachers, uploads through an API. Yeah, love it. Downloaded last year's groups. So many different great ideas. A lot of uploading prior groups. Now I feel like I'm a little bit of a bum here. Like I should have gone over and uploaded last year's kids into this year's. So love all the different ideas. upload on a weekly basis. Less than 15 minutes, not bad. Not compared to the beginning when this rostering process first came out. And it looks different, right? So what we probably see in the chat right now is there is no one way to do it. There are multiple ways to do it. And as long as that rostering process works for you and people have access to, the students they need, that's the right way, once again, for you. Love it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for sharing. And let's get into, actually, before we get into the Tom's Data Resource, I want to touch on one thing really quick. So there is a great new enhancement to CERS, and it was released last year. And that enhancement is the ability to be able to assign people to groups. You can just manually assign them without having to connect them in the rostering process. We're going to get to that here in a few minutes, but I just want to go over and give that plug because I'm seeing a lot of that coming up in here. And so it may make our lives a little easier as we're going over and wanting to add additional people in. So just want to go over and give that plug. But let's talk about Tom's resources really quickly. So let's say that we have, because not all data systems are created equal, or student information systems are created equal. They're not. Some of them are a little easier to use than others. And if you are not a query queen, or just how to go over, or you're not a query king, going over and writing a query and getting the information you need. Let's say you're like Kung Fu Panda, you're a level 0, level 1, but you need that information to go over and maybe upload certain groups. Tom's will give you some really great reports within the system that you can download that'll give you some really granular group information. So what do we mean by that? The steps I'm about to go through will live here. So don't feel like you have to write down every step if so you don't feel like you're missing anything. But how do we get there? I'm going to go back to casp-lpac.org. This time I'm going to go into Tom's. And so in Tom's, we go. This is something, not new for all of us as either site coordinators or district LEA coordinators. You're going to have our initial landing page. Now, remember, one of the columns is asking for, hey, what is your CDS code? Here's an easy way to grab it if you don't want to go to the California School Directory. When we log into Tom's, you'll see your CDS code for your whole county office, or excuse me, county, or for your district, sorry. For your district here, I'm a county office. But if you want it by individual school, just click on organization. Here are all of the CDS codes right behind the actual schools. Now, some of us are going to have larger districts than others. Maybe some of us are a K-8 district and we just need that one code. Easy way to grab it. But another easy way to grab a ton of this information is if you go to reports. If you go to reports, and there is a really great report that is called LEA Level Student Demographics Report. This report right here is all of the information that is inside of CalPADS. What do we mean by that? What is a student name? What school are they at? Economic status, foster status, EL status, you name it, it lives in here. So if you click on that report and then you click, I'm just going to click all schools. I'm really not going to do it. But if I click request new report, it will give you a spreadsheet with all the demographic information. Now, what does this look like? When you download it, it's going to give you information like what is the responsible LEA name, the LEA CDS code, the school code. That really doesn't necessarily help us on that template that we need to upload, but look at this. The CDS code is already in there. I've wiped out the SSIDs in here, but every single SSID that you need for that form is right here. Local student ID, you'll see last name, first name, You'll see grade levels. Filtering is going to be your absolute best friend on this. You can go over, maybe you want to create a group and maybe it's just for your ninth graders or your 10th graders, whatever it is, your primary language, English language acquisition. Maybe you want to create a student group, which you have some student groups already inside of CERS for English language acquisition status, but maybe it's your RFEPs. I don't know, maybe it's your CalPAT special education. You can apply a filter. Yes, no. You can pull all of your CalPAT special education SSIDs with CDS codes all in one spot, paste them into the template, upload, and you can connect whichever users you want to connect to that group through that process. Maybe you want to create one based on primary disability. So many different things, economic status, you name it. It's already right here. The point with this is maybe you don't want to create a query. Maybe you don't want to go over and, pull it out of an SIS. You can already pull it out right here. It lives already for you in these resources. So sometimes you don't have to recreate anything. They already live here. Maybe you want to create an LTEL group based on the definition for accountability, because you also have the EL start date. You also have the initial school entry date. You have a lot of different information inside of this Tom student score demographic file. You can take it, paste it into the template, manually add in people's email addresses that you need access to have it to. We've used that with very small schools, really small schools, where we knew that it was just going to be way too much effort to go over and try to, pull out every single, teachers and use queries from a student information system. It was one of these, nope, let's just pull the demographic file. You know who your combo teachers are, your second and third grade teacher, connect their email address right there. Your fourth and fifth, let's connect it here. There we go. We upload it. They have access to their students inside of CERS. Multiple ways. Doesn't mean it's the right way. Doesn't mean there's a wrong way. It's just a way to do it. So these are just some really great resources to use for collecting some of that data. Once again, if query is not your jam. So with that being said, what additional groups might you want to create in CERS based on the information you have access to? Whether it's in your student information system, whether it's those TOMS demographic files, maybe you're pulling CalPATs reports. What additional groups might you want to create? There's multiple ways or multiple groups. Yeah, sometimes you might not have that access inside of your SIS, right? And so it is easy. It is easy to go over and pull that information out. Any suggestions on how to handle groups of more than 200 students? Example, EL coordinator. That's where this is a Joe opinion, right? So that's where, if it's me, I would honestly consider using maybe a different role inside of TOMS, maybe like a site educator or district educator, because that role right there will allow for either, using the filter, because you have English learner filters already inside of CERS. CERS is really great with those. Or if you want to download, let's say, all of the student information, like, assessment information, you can download it and then just apply your EL filter, and then you can just filter out all the other students there. So student groups may not be the most efficient way for an EL coordinator. I've lived that role in the past. It might be one of the roles inside of TOMS that's going to grant a little more flexibility. Nikki.
Did you hear yesterday in the AIM meeting, someone asked that same question and CDE answered on behalf of Smarter that they're looking into expanding that so long as it doesn't like diminish system functionality, but they are looking at, they're hearing you. They're looking into it. I found that a very exciting answer from AIM.
Yeah, that is exciting. And we know that English learner information or English language acquisition status information, that's already in CERS. That's a filter. But we've gotten a lot of questions about, students with disabilities, um, getting access to that RSP, looking at that information. And if that's what you're looking for, those CalPADS reports, you have that right there at your fingertips. So a site or district coordinator does not need to be assigned to a group. The only reason you would want the only reason you would need a site or district coordinator to be assigned to a group is if you wanted them to see the individual scores by teachers. They would have to log in or not log in, excuse me. They would have to click into each group to see the different ones. But if the purpose is for them to be able to just simply see the data for their whole school, if your district for the whole district, having either LEA coordinator, site coordinator, those roles right there, they're going to automatically have access to the data. All right, great questions. All right, so that's accessing information. And a lot of this has been building up to actually where we're going to next, which is creative ways to connect users. It's a different world than where we were this time last year, just because of all the really cool enhancements that have happened inside of CERS. And so what we're going to go over right now is just what does it look like to connect different users inside of CERS? And so let me actually click in. And so these are the steps to actually get in and to be able to make some of those additions. And what I'm actually going to do is walk you through what that looks like. So let me go back home. And so let's say that, and this is a really recent enhancement. Let's say that I've already uploaded student groups and I need to go over and have my boss, Corey Greenlaw. I need to have him be able to see groups as well. He's in the system, he's a coordinator, but he needs to see it by group. But I don't want to go over and add him into my actual, group upload that I'm doing. Well, there's an easy way to do this now. If you go back to student groups, I'm going to make my screen a little bigger. Here we go. So these are my student groups for one of my schools. Notice there is a checkbox here. If I click on check all that apply or whichever groups I wanted him to have access to, I'm checking the boxes for the groups that we've already uploaded. We've gone through that process. They're in here. Corey wasn't part of it though. He can't see anything. If I click on those three dots, it's going to give me three options. I can now assign these groups to somebody. They'll be able to use the student groups. I can download all of them, and it sounds like a lot of us in the chat, you downloaded them and then re-uploaded. That's really cool. Or you can delete. That was always a challenge. I had to do it one by one in the past. I feel like an old man. I used to walk to school uphill in the snow, right? Now we can just mass delete. But we're talking about assigning here. So if I click on assign, and I just simply add in the email that I'm using in Tom's for him. There we go. So I'm adding his email address and I click assign. Those groups have now been assigned to him. He can now log into CERS, and not now. Give him about 20 minutes. 20 minutes, he can log into CERS. He will be able to see these student groups. He'll be able to, view the data through these different student groups. Now, here's the other thing that we learned as well, though, because I didn't, when I uploaded these groups, I didn't initially assign myself to these groups through that process. So what we've learned is if you have coordinator access, whether it's LEA or site, and these groups are in the system, they themselves can go in, check the boxes, and you can assign yourself to these groups. So really now it becomes the question of, do we need to have everybody as part of these groups when we upload them? And this is just a wide open question. That's just a real question that I have. Do we need to add everybody in there? But then here's the other part to it. And this is the thing we need to keep in mind. Some of us use APIs, those automatic pushes that happen overnight. So we don't use them anymore here. We used to, but we used to have that connected. Why did I stop using that connection? And this, once again, this is just a me thing. It's my context. The reason why is because since I'm not part of that upload in there, and Corey's not part of it, or whoever's adding themselves, every time those are uploaded in nightly, if the group name is exactly the same, it will overwrite the manual additions we made here, if that makes sense. So then it's just starting a bigger conversation for us here internally and also locally with the coordinators we support. It's really starting that big conversation of, how often do we want to upload? How often are we going to be using APIs? Are we going to, use the systems to, and I'm seeing a lot of it in the chat. They start with the creation of those reports, and then it's pushed over, and then, we let people assign themselves, or we can assign them. There's so many different things we can do now. There's a lot more flexibility than what we had in the past. And I guess that's the message here, is that's the good news, is that we have a ton of flexibility, and the system is continuing to improve and get better. So where do APIs live in this? What might work best for your local context? But remember, it doesn't even just have to be you that adds another coordinator in here and connects them. If they have coordinator access, they can connect themselves to the groups that are in the system. If they're a site coordinator for their site, if they are district, then they'd be able to connect themselves to, if it's a large district, it'd be a very large one, but connect themselves to everything in the district. Can you
We have a
add?
question, Joe. I'm hoping you can answer while you're on this page. If you click that context menu again and go to the assign option in the bulk, does it allow you to add multiple email addresses, comma, separated here, or do you have to do it one at a time?
Ooh, that's a good question. I honestly don't know the answer. Do you know the
Well,
answer?
if you click, I'm wondering if you click assign, what does it say? It says email. Okay.
Yeah, assign.
I mean, I would just give it a try, Laura, and see if the system gives you an error message, or if you're going to have to do it multiple times, once for each person.
Here, I'll tell you right now. We're going to do this in front of everybody. Let's see. SCLE.org. And then let me do a comma, and let me add in, let me think of one more in my system. Actually, invalid email format.
One at a time it is.
All right. Yep. That answers that. Oh, yeah. Look at that. And it kept the assign. We learn something new every day. You see that? That's like the Austin Powers. Do you guys remember that scene? I also like to live dangerously. That's right. We were living dangerously there. Yeah, great question. Okay. So let me go back to the presentation here. All right. So question for everybody one more time. Who might we need to use the assign feature within CERS? Who might we need to use that with? Do we need to use that in bulk upload? Who might we use that with? What teachers might we use, or what staff members, excuse me? Who might we use that with? It's a brave new world. It's completely different now. We weren't able to do that in the past. No, we could, but it was going to be a lot of work. So who might we be able to use that with? Long-term subs, department leads, coaches. Who else? Assistant soups, TOSAs, SPED. SPED's a big one, right? RSP teachers, part-time interventionists. So many different people we can add now. And once again, if we were to go back to when we first started with CERS a few years back, we were lucky just to go over and be able to connect the teachers really without errors. And now we're getting really sophisticated. We're seeing part-time interventionists, RSP, TOSAs, department leads, coaches. Ooh, Nikki, yeah. Running the sys integration wants to get the groups in there and then turn it off and manage them essentially manually. Yeah, love it. Sharing is caring. We are all, sharing ideas, borrowing ideas. Yeah. So Eric adds himself to every email, but you're right. Sometimes we'll get phone calls from teachers and you want to know specifically and you want to see what they're seeing. So gives you the ability to be able to log in and see. But yeah, Eric's in a really large district, so 15,000 kids. Love it. Thank you everybody for going over sharing. All right, so this is the part now where we're just going to leave it wide open. We're going to have just an open Q&A. Any questions? You've seen different things today. Any questions you might have? There's a wealth of information in the room. There are a lot of people very experienced. So just any questions you might have, feel free to either raise your hand or you can type it in the chat. We can go over and hopefully get that answered for you. And while we're sitting there, getting ready for our questions, I'm actually going to take advantage of the silence really quick in the room to plug the upcoming CERA conference. That's coming up in November. It will be in Riverside. While everybody's thinking about, your questions, sessions. We were just looking over the sessions a few weeks back where, it's very diverse. There are CalPAD sessions. Our colleagues at CSIS are going to be there. They're going to have a few sessions out there. So your CalPADS coordinators, if you're friends with them, share the conference information with them. Our colleagues at Smarter Balanced are going to be there going over, I believe it's CERS, right, Nikki? I think it's CERS. Just once again, very, very diverse sessions. Okay.
Lots of excellent applied research,
Mhm.
academic research, lots of great best practices sessions out there.
Mhm.
And super affordable, guys. Like we picked Riverside because it's an affordable and excellent location.
All right, so we got a couple questions coming in. For those using the Aries API to generate groups, what do you see as the benefits? What do you wish it would do that it does not do yet? And that's a very specific Aries question in here. I don't know. We'll see if people can add something to the chat right now with Aries. If we turn the API off, can a teacher add new students to their student group? Great question. They will not be able to add students in because most of our teachers are either test examiners, test administrators, or IA only, and they wouldn't have that ability to do that. Our teachers are not typically like site educator, district educator, or LEA coordinators. If you don't have integration, how often do you upload? Great question, right? How often would we need to upload? And I think the answer for that one probably depends for everybody, right? For me internally with my schools, one of mine is a JJC, and I'm constantly getting new kids. It's a revolving door, so mine would have to be, almost biweekly. Um, but for the others in the districts, I mean, maybe that's a good question for everybody in the group. How often, and actually let's add that to the chat right now. How often are you guys uploading rosters? What does it look like for you guys in your context? Mine's different. What is it? I'm a very unique person. I'm in a unique situation over here. So mine has to look different, but what does everybody else's look like? Katie does hers trimester for elementary, semester secondary, unless you get a call. Yeah. Eric updates weekly to keep up with the changes. And Eric has a pretty robust system. It's pretty sophisticated what he's built. Anybody know if there's been an update to the limit of number of teachers allowed in a single Aries API setup? Ooh, I don't know. I remember there was man, what was the limit? It used to be 16, 17. I had to create multiple groups in Aries, and that's where it got a little frustrating for us. Um, I don't know if that's been updated or not. That's a great question. We can actually reach out and ask. That's a good one. Jen down in Fruitvale, you update weekly for your junior high, and then elementary site, you update twice a month. It's really interesting. It's very different, right? Depending on your context. This is really interesting. I've never really had a chance to go over and really just hear what everybody does. This is really great learning, I think, for all of us. Well, for me, that's a selfish one, right? Users for the school year. Oh yeah. All right. So yeah, a little bit different subject, but in Tom's, trying to go over and upload your users for this year, there's a glitch right now, and it has to do with macros for adding users. Our colleagues at ETS are working on fixing it, but Nikki taught me this trick. So I can see, so your school year probably doesn't go to 25, 26 when you're trying to upload users into Tom's. So here's the fix for it. And once again, I'm going to credit Nikki for this. When you download the template, save it as, rename it, save it as something else. And then once you save it as, close it. And then when you reopen that upload template, then in Nikki's words, you're essentially tricking your computer into thinking that you created it. And 25, 26 will pop up. So I had to do that for uploading our users this year as well. But there's a fix. There's a fix that hopefully will be out in a few weeks. Yeah, Jennifer, you do a nightly update with the Aries API. Yeah, but you're going to wait until enrollment, and that's typical. That's typical with a lot of districts. We're waiting until, and then sometimes people are waiting for final enrollments too, just because there's a ton of movement that happens at the beginning of the year. Great questions, great conversations. Love it. We went everywhere today. We went Toms, we went CERS, we went templates, we went everywhere. So thank you very much, everybody, for going over and asking those questions and answering questions and sharing your thoughts and ideas. And so just to wrap up, remember, we were talking about access and CERS through TOMS. Remember all those roles, district educator, coordinator, so on and so forth, roles and what they have access to. We did that live demo with the CERS upload templates, what it looks like, even, uploading it in and downloading them. We also talked about the root data resources that we have inside of TOMS. Special education, you name that demographic information, it lives in there already, along with CDS codes. And we had a conversation about just the different ways we can go over and connect users, different ways. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just whatever works locally for you. If you have any questions, always feel free. Reach out to me. You have access to this presentation. A lot of you email, we email back and forth. So, if you have any questions about CERS, anything like that, we're here to go over and support. And with that, sorry, can't speak today, it's Friday. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day. And if not, we'll stick around here for a few minutes if you got any additional questions. And if not, have a great rest of the Friday, everybody.